Hi bestie, just a quick heads up before we dive in. This is a continuation of a story I've already started right here on my channel. If you're new here or just stumbled on this part, I'd really recommend starting from the beginning so you can have a better understanding of how it all began. You'll find the first part right on my channel. I'd love for you to enjoy it fully. Also, I absolutely love seeing where you all are listening from. It truly makes my day. So don't be shy and comment below where in the world you're listening from. Now get comfy. Let's get back into the story. Chapter 4. The journey continued with Sebastian aloof about Clara. His eyes remained on the way in front of them without blinking in her direction. Clara wiped at her face as she tried to meet with the stride of the beast bearing the alpha. "Why me? You could have taken any of the girls," she said on day 3 as the group stopped to rest, filling their pitcher at the nearby brook. "He would not answer your question," Moreno said as he walked closer to Clara, putting the pitcher to her mouth. Clara turned her head away, refusing to drink. "Let her be. She doesn't need it," Sebastian said, unaware of her refusal. "She's going to die, and any reason you bought her to be your slave would be voided," Moreno said, putting the pitcher closer to her face. Sebastian scoffed as he stepped down from his horse. "Whatever you wish." His voice was icy as he stepped to the brook, guiding his horse and pulling Clara along. "I don't care if I have to drag her dead body to the pack." Moreno shrugged his shoulders as he followed Clara, who trailed with the moving horse. "You would have to sustain your strength if you want to know why he has you," he said as he pulled out some dried jerky from his bag, putting it with the pitcher in her hands. Clara took it in good faith. Her hands trembled as she held the food in her hands. The only thing she had in her stomach was the meal Zach had forced her to eat, and now she was here eating dried jerky. She let out a low moan. 4 days, and she had no meat, only the slurry Zach prepared for her. The food was like a taste of her suffering as she dropped to the ground. Her tears poured as she thought of the girls who she thought she would save, being tossed around like their lives didn't matter. Sebastian walked up with his shadow overshadowing the girl. "Up. We are leaving," he said as he towered over her. Clara raised her head, staring into his eyes and wiping the tears on her face. "Your tears would flow more than this," Sebastian said as he mounted his horse. "Could you let me rest for a minute? My legs hurt," Clara said as she clumped on the rest of the food. Sebastian lowered his gaze to her feet. She had blisters on them, but he wasn't about showing pity to the daughter of the man who made him lose almost everything. He had only escaped with his life, rebuilding his lost pack. "Up. We don't have the luxury of time around this region." Clara turned to Moreno. He seemed to be her pillar of support as he nodded his head. She stood to her feet, with Sebastian nudging his horse forward. Clara walked on with her hands tied in front of her, pulled by the man who would not give her face. "You should not put yourself with men my father would come after," Sebastian chuckled, the first time he had done so since he saw her. "You should forget about your father." "Why? He's going to come for me," Clara said with a surety in her voice. "Your father is long dead," Sebastian replied, keeping his gaze forward. His tone had a tinge of regret in him. He wanted to be the one who had snuffed the life out of the old king, but he would have to transfer those pains to his daughter. "You are lying!" Clara yelled, struggling against the horse, but she was no stronger as it pulled her forward like she weighed nothing. "Scarlet told me he killed the old man. He claimed he was a stubborn one and kept fighting back. He had to get rid of him before he spoiled our deal." Sebastian continued with his explanation. Clara felt her cheeks sting her. She didn't want to believe her father would die. He had fought off a horde of soldiers, saving her and the few other girls with her. He told her would come back and rescue them. There was no way he would die. Sebastian closed his ears to her complaint, letting his horse pull them along. The remaining days were like a blur to Clara as they reached Sebastian's pack. He nodded his head to those greeting him as they continued to a castle. Clara lowered her head to the gazes directed at her. Once a princess, but now they throttled her along. Pain coins on her head for her release. The horse stopped as they got into the castle, with Sebastian dismounting from his horse. He took one look at Clara. Someone should wash her off at the stable with the horses. Would not want her staining my interior. Servants moved towards Clara, loosening her from her bounds. Their instructions were explicit, and Sebastian would watch as he walked behind them until they were at a stable. Water splashed over her with her clothes clinging to her body, but Clara held her head high as they continued, cleaning every spot but leaving her clothes on. Sebastian nodded, walking away. It was just the beginning. Send her to my room when you are done with her. Moreno gave a curt bow. He would wait until Sebastian was out of sight before he would help her out. Clara stood, gritting her teeth with the lather soaking into the open wounds under her feet. That's enough, Moreno said, stopping the servants from doing more. Get her more water. The servants nodded, walking away, leaving the beta and Clara alone. You don't have to blame him harshly. He will tell you the truth eventually, but I can only help you survive as much as you will let me, Moreno said as he took a piece of clothing, using it to cover the stall as the servants returned with more water. Clean yourself up. Clara nodded, despite her mind being in the clouds. She knew she had no option, no father, and nowhere to return to. Sebastian wouldn't lie to her. He seemed to have a hatred for her, and she did not know where it came from, but she would have to know. Chapter 5. Days had passed since Sebastian had brought her to his pack. Moreno had done as he had said, helping Clara acclimatize to the pack. Sebastian stepped out, staring at Clara as she cleaned the floors. Why isn't she washing the stalls? Moreno cleared his throat, stepping out to meet him. The horses wouldn't budge, and they would hurt her if she got too close. She wouldn't die then. She isn't the first one to catch a horse's hoof to the abdomen, Sebastian said as he stared at the lady. Moreno nodded his head. She would clean the stalls when she's finished with her chores. Sebastian scoffed at Moreno. He knew his beta was easing up on the girl. Only if they knew what he had suffered at the hands of her father. None of them would consider his punishment harsh enough. Meet me in the training yard once you have her cleaning the stables. Moreno nodded, staring at Clara, who continued with her work. Clara raised her head when she realized Sebastian had left, dropping the towel on the ground. I don't even know what my crime is. Why does he treat me like this? She asked with her voice choking. Moreno sighed, turning towards the spot Sebastian had left. Even I don't know. I know he had suffered a lot, the scars on his body. I thought all of them were war scars when he found me. He's usually unstable when he mutters in his sleep, but he has never shared his nightmares with me. Why does it seem he wants to inflict his nightmares on me? Clara asked. That is for you to find out. I will ease your struggles, and you would only wash his horse, Geralt's stall. If he asks, I will say it was my misinterpretation, Moreno said, turning away from her. Hurry with this to make the next one more believable. Clara nodded, returning her head to the task at hand. A princess, now a slave as she scrubbed the marbled floor of this castle. She had no choice but to accept her fate. Moreno walked away, heading towards the training room as Sebastian had ordered. The alpha had taken his shirt off, revealing those scars he had told Clara of. Are you done with your pity? Sebastian asked as he turned to face Moreno. Moreno smiled, pulling off his glasses and his shirt to match with his alpha's. It is not a pity if there isn't someone to pity. Sebastian chuckled as he made a stance with his neck muscles popping. Pity is for those who are strong enough to live through every day, not those who die at every instance. Moreno nodded, stepping closer to Sebastian. Why are you projecting your anger on her? I doubt she knows the reason. Sebastian lunged, throwing a punch at Moreno, who dodged, pouncing as they encircled each other. She doesn't have to know, but she has to pay for what her father did to me. Is that the reason you ended our partnership with Scarlet? He had killed the person you wanted your revenge on? Moreno asked as he dodged another punch, parrying the hand and creating a distance between him and Sebastian. It doesn't matter now. He is dead, but the monster he created lives on. Sebastian growled as he threw another punch, using the opportunity to lock themselves in close fisticuffs. Moreno moved. His gait was ethereal as he danced with each blow, rapping until he was standing back to back with Sebastian. Sebastian growled, catching Moreno's head and flipping over, but the beta seemed like air as he performed a graceful curve in the air before landing on his feet. Your rage may have been your strength in a long while, but there are no wars now. Why would you transfer your aggression to a lady who doesn't even know what her father had done? Moreno asked as he moved forward, sweeping his legs through the air. Sebastian dodged, groaning as a kick missed his face by inches. Where does all my anger go if not to the seeds of the one who had caused me my most pain? You love your people, regardless. I watched you lead everyone to our home, built our former glory with the same grit you had used to escape your captor's grip. Moreno spoke with him, becoming the offensive. Sebastian moved away, creating distance as a hit almost connected to his face. He was becoming sloppy, and he could tell as Moreno danced at the end. Someone just has to pay for what I have become. For the nights I could not sleep, and for my... He stopped, deciding not to spill the last one as he charged at Moreno. At least, tell her. She needs to know why she is suffering. Let her accept her fate as it comes, Moreno said as he dodged Sebastian's charge, dropping a foot in front and tripping the alpha. Sebastian placed his hand in front of him with dust raising in the air from his fall. Your need for mercy would be your death, he said as he rolled to face the sky. Moreno walked towards him, holding his hand out towards him. I have a capable alpha who always watches my back. Sebastian clasped his hand, pushing himself to his feet. One day I wouldn't be there to watch your back. My goal is to be your guide, just as you stand for us all. We'll probably die on the same battlefield, Moreno replied, stepping out of the way as Sebastian walked over to his shirt. No second rounds? I'd kill you if there was another round, Sebastian said as he walked back to the castle. Moreno walked behind him, putting his glasses on and his shirt on his shoulders. He could only hope Clara had finished with the job he had given her. Clara stepped out with a pail in her hands. Her skin glistened as the sun reflected against her sweat-filled body. Are you done with the stable? Sebastian asked with a frown on his face when he saw her. Clara stared at Moreno, who nudged his head for her to answer in the affirmative. Yes, I'm done with Geralt's stable. Sebastian turned towards Moreno, who remained still. Have her cleaned, Sebastian said, turning back to her. I need her to serve my drink tonight? Moreno nodded. You will have her in your chambers tonight, Alpha. He turned to Clara. You heard him? Clara heaved a deep breath as she stared at Sebastian's fading back. What more could he want from her? I'm sorry, Clara muttered as she bent to pick the remnants of what had toppled out of her hands while Sebastian stood, a scowl on his face. What have you done? Sebastian asked as he walked towards her. His hands folded into fists. Clara stopped away, overshadowed by the man moving closer to her until she had nowhere to turn to except she could squeeze herself into the wall. He stood over her, his breath pouring over her face. Clara gulped as she expected the worst to happen. You ruined my favorite shirt, Sebastian yelled as he held her face to stare into her eyes. I didn't mean to. You will wash it, and your punishment would be to stand guard over me, Sebastian growled as he walked away from her. There was little he could do about her. Yes, sir, Clara answered. Her body shivered at the thought of what would have happened. If I stand guard for you tonight, would you tell me why you hate me so much? Sebastian stopped in his tracks, Moreno's words coming back to him. Do your job well, and you might get the answer you want. He disappeared after that, returning at the stroke of 9. Clara remained in the room, waiting for him with her hands behind her. Sebastian walked into his room, taking the top shirt from his body. She didn't have to see the scars her father had inflicted on him as he walked close to her. Do not do something stupid, he said as he turned away from her, climbing into bed. Clara gulped, watching as he tucked himself in. She had turned from a slave to a cleaner. Now she was his guard. She felt her heart stir as she watched him. He had closed his heart to everyone, kept his pain to only himself. A sigh escaped her lips and shook the thought away. She was adapting. Maybe he would let her off after a while. The night drew on. Clara stood, almost toppling from falling into sleep. The sound of someone groaning pushed her away from her sleep. It was from Sebastian, as he seemed to be in pain. Sebastian tossed on his bed. Another nightmare from his past, despite knowing this king was dead. Clara turned to the man who wouldn't sleep, or let her sleep. She could see the look on his face as he tossed around with sweat on his brows. She climbed into the bed, wrapping her hands around him as she hushed into his ears. Sebastian stopped tossing. His little cries of pain faded with Clara's arms wrapped around him. Maybe it was what he wanted as his pains faded away. Clara remained still, holding him in place until his brow relaxed. She didn't know what had happened to him, but she knew what he wanted as she fell asleep, holding him in her arms. Sebastian woke up the next morning staring at the empty bed. Clara stood next to the bed, heavy eye bags under her eyes, yet something had seemed different. "You haven't slept?" "No," she shook her head. "You kept me awake all night." Sebastian rubbed his hand over his forehead. No sweat or nightmare for the first time in years. "What did I do?" "You seemed to be in pain, and I laid next to you, wrapping my arms around you," Clara answered, holding her hands together in front of her. Sebastian's brow furrowed at her words. He hadn't expected her to do something as such, but yet it had calmed him. It was the most peaceful night he had ever had since his escape from Whitestone. "Leave," he commanded, turning away like he was ashamed of what had happened. "Return tonight and do whatever you did." "Yes, Alpha," Clara said with a bow, another word that shocked him as he turned to stare at her. It seemed there was something wrong in the air. She called him Alpha instead of complaining, as usual. He turned away, shaking his thought away. If she could make him have a moment of peace, he would take all of what she had to offer. The nights continued that way. Sebastian could feel it. It was like a red coal in the depth of his bitter heart, lighting a flame in the darkness. He stepped out of bed, watching her stagger as she dozed, while watching him. Everything was moving out of perspective. There was no hatred for her anymore. "What's happening?" Sebastian asked himself as he stared at her. No more anger. He felt nothing. How could he not feel anything? Chapter 6. He never knew what was about to happen. He had brought her to his pack to make her suffer, but she had taken each punishment he had given to her. Maybe she wasn't like her father, different from the harsh man he had known the king to be. "Why?" Sebastian asked as he stared into her face. "Why?" Clara repeated without shifting her gaze. "Why do I have to love the daughter of the man who caused me so much pain? My body refuses to heal, my mind remains broken, and I tether between sanity and insanity." Sebastian said with his gaze unwavering. Clara said nothing. No words would leave her lips as she had not expected such from the man who wanted to hurt her. Now all she felt for him was love. "I don't know," she answered as she raised her hand to his cheek. Sebastian flinched away from her touch. Anger or fear, he could not decide. "I won't hurt you," Clara said with her hand still hanging in the air. Not that she could even hurt him. He seemed to listen as he steeled his face. Her hand came down, not the brute force he had expected, soft and calming as it caressed his cheek. Could he trust the daughter of the man who had forced a lifelong trauma on him? "See? I will not hurt you." "I'm not like my father," Clara said as her hand moved, grazing his skin in the softest way she could manage. Sebastian closed his eyes, letting the feeling wash away the hurts of those years. Maybe he could trust. She had given him no reason to doubt her. She held him while he slept at night. Her presence and her grasp had pushed the nightmares into the darkness whence they had come from. He could. "What did he do to you?" Clara asked as she stared into his face. His eyes sparkled in the darkness, emerald against the moonlight. Unimaginable things. A show, a spectacle to those in higher power. "I was his pet to use as he pleased," Sebastian said, closing his eyes to shut the memories away, but they poured through his shut eyes. "Your father had held me at a stake, fastened my hands with metal shackles while he stuck out my manhood in front of a crowd of royalty. He had metal heated, and with that, he stuck it over my dick." Clara held her hand over her mouth. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. How could my father be so cruel?" Sebastian turned away, using his hand to hold his head up. "No one knows, except those who had watched it happen." Clara moved, putting her hands around him and turning him to face her. "I know now. This is not what you should keep to yourself." "I don't think I can have an heir anymore," Sebastian said as he turned towards her. Clara put her hand to his lips, rubbing them. "You've never tried, only carried a trauma around. That was the only thing I had, the only thing I knew was pushing me forward." Sebastian said as he held her hand, squeezing it as one would squeeze a baby's hand. Clara pushed forward, placing a kiss on his lips. We can try now to know if you would have an heir or not." Sebastian pushed away against his urge with his eyes closed, but his body held him still as the sensual wave washed over him. His closed eyes popped open as he stared at her. Those gray eyes weren't the ones he knew of her father. It was of a lady who was growing to understand him and his pain. "What do you say?" Clara asked as she pulled away. Sebastian leaned forward, placing a kiss on her lips. He had dwelt too long in the past to not want to move forward. Clara took his action as a yes as her arms wrapped around him, pulling him closer to herself. If she hated him, all she felt for him now was a mountain of love washing over her. Her body tensed as his hand wrapped around her, pulling her over himself. Try again. Try again if you failed, and that was what they were as their body intertwined in serial lust. Estranged hearts now engage in a moment of passion as the lips tugged for control. Clothes slipped out of bodies, leaving two naked souls bare. They took turns filling each other. Moans of pleasure echoed into the nights. The bed creaked to his thrust. Soon he felt her reach her climax, digging her nails into his skin. They fell away, gasping for air as the moment passed away. Clara climbed over him, putting her head on his chest as both of them gasped for air. This was the end of his pain, Sebastian thought as he closed his eyes. Sleep came. It came easily. No dreams. No nightmare until the morning called. Sebastian opened his eyes as a ray of warm sunlight struck his face. He lowered his head, staring at the body crouched on his. He pulled away from her body, careful not to wake her from her slumber as he stepped out of bed, pulling a pair of shorts over his naked body as he moved to the bathroom. The mirror pulled out his reflection in his presence. There was something off about him. He could tell from the radiance as he moved closer to it. "What were you expecting?" the reflection asked, causing Sebastian to flinch backwards. "Everything that would exclude my reflection from talking to me," Sebastian answered. "You think this would end with making love with the seed of the person who created us?" Sebastian's reflection spoke, pointing at him. "You can't get rid of me by creating a chance for love. I've kept you out of harm's way all these years." "I don't know," Sebastian replied, staring at his hands. "There is no need for me to continue with that life." His reflection cackled in the mirror. "I expected you to say that. Love has clouded your mind, keeping you in its hold. If it's going to take all the pain away, then I will let it be taken away. You will kill her with your hands and you will come crying back to me." Sebastian shook his head. "No, I don't need you anymore." "Are you speaking to someone?" Clara's voice boomed from the room, drawing closer as she walked to the bathroom. Sebastian glanced at the door and back in the mirror. His reflection had returned to normal just as Clara wrapped her hands around him. "I thought I heard you talking to someone." "You heard right. I was pushing away old thoughts from me," Sebastian said as he turned to her, wrapping his hand around her. She was his safe space, and he would make sure he was her safe space as well. "Thanks for staying until the end, bestie. Hope this story made your day as much as your subscription would brighten mine. Here's hoping you'd tune into my next story too. Lots of love."